Hey, Matt Robeson, Beyond Politics emergency podcast, available not only as audio, but on the Blue Amp channel on YouTube with my Blue Amp channel partner, Cliff Schecter. It's an emergency because George Santos has been beamed up or beamed down to the netherworld. He's been booted out of Congress. But Cliff, you and I were chatting offline. We're like, let's just take this straight to the airwaves because you wanted to make a point about the fact that this is like standard Republican mayhem and we've just all become used to it.
Yeah, I don't even know. First of all, good to be here with you, Matt. I don't even know that it's an emergency anymore. Things that we used to consider an emergency. Donald Trump maybe his finger slipping on the nuclear button from too much KFC grease, or things that are a potential reality now, and were for 4 years. Life has changed. What we considered to be like drama. I remember I used to sit there and watch House of Cards and be like, that could never happen.
Right.
I don't know that I'd even say that anymore. Yeah, just think about since January of 2021, we've had a full scale, and it becomes clearer all the time. And I would argue if it weren't for the failures, and yes, failures, wimpiness of Merrick Garland, I'm really glad he got Hunter Biden. That was, on the gun charge. That's really important stuff that we know. We just saw text today from Scott Perry to Marjorie Taylor Greene. The fact that at least a dozen members of Congress have not been investigated heavily and likely indicted yet is insulting to our democracy. So they had the large-scale insurrection and attack and attempted coup, both physically with violence and with rejecting electoral votes. Mike Pence wasn't even going to go that day unless his son told him to go, which is why Grassley was busy tweeting out. So I don't want to get in the weeds of this, but an insurrection.
Right? An insurrection. Let's stipulate your insurrection.
So that's something that doesn't tend to happen often. Marjorie Taylor Greene was stripped of all of her committees. I didn't look up how often that happens because on their way to committees, she had to dodge various Jewish lasers. It was tough to get there without getting hit. That almost never happens. Kevin McCarthy, when he became speaker, restored her to that position, which takes us to a great segue. Kevin McCarthy took 15 votes to become Speaker of the House, first time since I think like 1837 or something of that nature. And then, of course, was deposed as Speaker of the House, which basically never happens, just by a handful of his own members. We had that happen. We had no Speaker for 2 or 3 weeks of the House. Don't know when that's last happened. Then they decided to put in the self-anointed Jesus Crisco oil, John Ashcroft type lunatic. I was thinking that old story about Ashcroft, and before he was brought out as AG, putting Crisco oil on his forehead because he's Jesus or something. Mike Johnson, who apparently he and his son confer on their porn consumption, and he became our speaker, not to mention he wants to make being gay illegal, abortion illegal, and everything else. And we've now also had an expulsion, an insurrection, a stripping of committees, a speaker deposed, a period without a speaker. This is what you would not call a stable democracy right now.
And we are, to torture an oft-used metaphor, forget the frog in the slowly raising temperature pot of water until it's boiling. The pot has been exploded in a nuclear fission reaction. The frog is reduced to atoms. And we're like,
they shoot the clown out of at the circus, what they used to do. That's what they did with the frog here. They just threw him in the cannon and shot him out.
We have vaporized the frog at this point. Look, just even going back, we don't have time. We do not. This is an emergency thing. We're going to do this in just a few minutes. So we don't have time to recount the insanity of the Trump years. Let me just give you one. The person in charge of COVID response under Donald Trump for the federal government said Donald Trump was personally responsible for the deaths of at least 130,000 Americans because of his incompetence. His gross incompetence, which led him to have the worst economic record of any president, both in terms of growth and jobs, since Herbert Hoover, since the Great Depression.
That was, what's her name, right?
Deborah Birx.
The one that sat there and told her that maybe we should inject.
Yes, inject cleaner. And they literally have to, this is a whole other thing, but the FDA literally had to put out a tweet to say, please don't give yourself horse drench, sheep drench. You are not a horse. You're not, because people so wanted to do that. My point is,
all of them weren't horses, though, because some of them seem to, in their behavioral preferences and in their voting patterns, be on the level. No, that's mean to horses, actually.
That is mean to horses. What are you doing? You're dissing horses? We lost the horse fans.
There's other kinds of dewormer too. I don't know. We'll look into it.
Yeah, if you look back, and if you look back even earlier than that, over the last 30 years, this is a fun Google for people, okay? Look up House Republican leadership. And there's a Wikipedia page. Just look at who the leaders have been over the last 30 years. Every single one of them, with one exception, has come to a bad end. They've ended up in federal prison, like Tom DeLay, Dennis Hastert. They have ended up getting deposed by their own party, Kevin McCarthy. Because
Boehner had to
internal
go drink the whole thing off.
power struggles, and always because the leaders are not viewed as crazy enough. And we've somehow just become, so now George Santos, I was a congressional staffer the last time a member of Congress was expelled. And by the way, he was a Democrat. It was Jim Traficant of Ohio, someone near and dear to your heart.
Democrat, but he was the Democrat that always voted with the Republicans.
Technically a Democrat. And he was
had a D next to his name.
He was a criminal. So of course he was expelled. But we are just so used to this now. And here's the final thing I'll leave you on, is this idea that now the person who is atop the Republican field to be their nominee in 2024 is the former president. Every single person who has worked in a senior capacity for Donald Trump is begging the public, do not vote for this man. We just saw Cassidy Hutchinson, his former attorney general and sycophant, kiss-ass sycophant, Bill Barr, John Kelly, his former chief of staff, who he called to have executed, and Mike Pence,
McMaster, who was the head of the NSA. He didn't say it recently. He said it way back when. That
every single one of them, they're begging us.
See what they actually do as we get closer to the election, assuming he's the nominee, if they are willing. Because finally, Mitt Romney, I got tired of they're all terrible, but he wouldn't come out and say it. Same with Adam Kinzinger, who at least have now both said they will campaign against Trump and they will campaign for Biden if that's what it comes to. Again, so I'm interested to see the rest of this crew too, because if you really do care about your country over your stupid party, which is just a dumb label, I mean, the Democratic Party adopted some of the positions that were insane. I would not be a Democrat tomorrow. This attachment to some label is incredible to me. And so hopefully more of them will kick the label off and do what's right and make sure that, and I think you are going to see it, because I think a lot of people who thought he'll be dangerous, but he'll be reined in. Milley comes to mind. They were the ones there who actually had to rein him in and had to stop him from doing things that were just unbelievably illegal and would have been unbelievably destructive to this country.
Or sending nuclear bombs into a hurricane, that kind of thing. Or into Mexico.
Blowing up a certain drug labs in Mexico, because as Donald Trump thought, they wouldn't know which direction the missiles were coming from.
Yes.
We don't have this thing called radar at this point. How would anybody know? It could be from the sky.
If you did have radar, he could just show up and draw over your map with a Sharpie, so it'd be fine.
Hey, look, it's over there. It's just a matter. Look, like, we can joke about this all day long, and I do, because I have to.
Yes. No, please. That sounds very enticing. Let's do it.
But I have to stay sane is the thing. But this is no way to run a government. This party is there's all these, and we won't go into it all because we can't. But there's all these, some of them are built into our Constitution. Some of them are things they've taken advantage of and they've bastardized and changed the way judges have been appointed and gerrymandering and this and that. But they've made it so that they can be this crazy and still have a shot at the presidency and still hold on to real power. And that is a serious danger and a serious problem, because they otherwise, if it were just based upon the popularity of their positions and how crazy they are, they would, with the exception of a couple of very rural states, be a massive minority that nobody had to listen to.
And I just want to make one point about the George Santos aspect of all of this. I don't want people to think for a second that the Republicans have suddenly woken up and found religion, unless it's the religion of Mike Johnson, which literally, yes, woke. Yes, they're woke. No, they haven't like suddenly, oh my gosh, thank heavens, we've just realized that having a criminal is bad. That has not happened. They haven't gotten religion the way Mike Johnson got religion and believes dinosaurs were on Noah's Ark. True fact. You can look it up. They have gotten rid of.
I've been there, by the way. I can even tell you all that. It's right across the river here from Cincinnati, that museum. I tried to ride on one of the dinosaurs with a saddleback on it, but they wouldn't let me climb on it in the museum.
It's because you're Jewish. Yeah. Yep. That's probably what it is.
Marcy Wheeler, and she was a woman, so that probably would have meant.
There it is.
It probably would have meant something.
Women walk.
Like, she was taking control of her own sexuality or something.
Oh, gosh. No, this is a real thing. We're not joking about this. This is Speaker of the House, second in line to the presidency. Yeah. He believes all these things. My point about George Santos is simply that we put out a video on the Blue Am channel. You were narrating. It was one of the most fun ones we ever did, where you called George Santos Kevin McCarthy's blood bag. It's from Mad Max.
And they have
Fury Road.
Furiosa coming out soon, by the way. But I'll let you continue.
And he literally just had him as a reserve vote because he had a 4-vote margin to work with.
Yes.
And he had the Freedom Caucus threatening to execute him politically at any moment, which they did.
And
the
knowing how
only
crazy
reason
they are possibly execute. I don't
Well,
know.
yeah, if they tried to off Mike Pence, so
right.
why not?
So I'm saying we shouldn't rule it out.
Shouldn't rule it out. The only reason they're getting rid of George Santos now, it's not out of embarrassment. It's not because the ethics committee run by Republicans found that he was a rank criminal. They knew that's not new information. They did it because they've decided to throw up their hands and throw in their lot with Mike Johnson. They're not going to depose Mike Johnson anytime soon because they've just decided they want the peace and quiet. So they're pretty confident in sticking with their 4-vote margin.
And there's one other factor that's really important here too. And that factor is as simple as it gets: the calendar. This was when he was first elected. It was early on. They figured they needed his vote. We're now at a point in time where there will be primaries and there'll be elections in New York next year. And because New York Democrats screwed up in a whole host of ways, 3 or 4 Republicans won in districts they had Santos included, had no business winning. And these other Republicans are scared shitless, let's just say. They've been the ones leading the charge to throw him out because they know that if they get associated with him, they already have a Herculean task holding on to those districts.
Brilliant point. Exactly right. Exactly right. So they'd rather face a special election that they're probably going to lose now than have their whole ticket weighed down in what's likely to be harder redistricted, redrawn districts in 2024. They'd rather take the hit on one seat than get dragged down in 5 or 6.
And get lucky and hold most of the rest, maybe lose one other one, or what will likely happen no matter what they do, let's hope anyhow, lose 4 or 5 seats, which there's enough close seats. They have 3 seats that are at least that are lean Democratic and one more that I think is about even. Yeah, Santos was one of the lean Democratic, and then 1 or 2 more that are barely lean Republican. Like they literally we could gain enough seats to win back the House from just New York. And
can I close out on a hopeful note? Let me close out on a hopeful note. Ready? I'm gonna jujitsu this. I know I'm all Mr. Sunshine and Light here today. Hey, Donald Trump, pay attention to this because you may think that you have got a cult-like hammerlock on your party and your followers, and you do for now. But as soon as you become a political liability, as soon as you become a liability to the only thing that the Republican Party cares about, which is holding on to power, they will cut you loose and shiv you in the back so fast. Are we close to that? No. But for a man who's facing 91 felony counts in 4 separate trials and all kinds of criminal liability.
It's impressive. It's 23 per. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great batting average. If I were Donald Trump, I would just pay attention to this because all the Republican Party cares about is holding on to power. And the minute you are no longer an asset in that regard,
I'd like to finish I was going to let Matt finish, but I need to finish now because of what he said. I'd like to say, Donald Trump, don't pay attention to any of this. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep putting out those truths of yours on Truth Social as long as before it falls, when it'll inevitably crash because it has no more investor money because it sucks, like every other Trump product. But keep doing that. Keep talking out. Keep attacking judges. Keep saying crazy stuff. And make sure that you get that core 33% of Republicans that love you to all vote for you so you can be the nominee. And then next year we can watch as the campaign goes on and as you constantly leave the campaign trail in front of cameras to be convicted of crime after crime. And then we see what the country is willing to do.
It's good either way. Either he has dread of this or it's all a delicious surprise for him. Either way is good. Let's just cross our fingers on it. All right.
With his intellect, every day is a new delicious surprise for him. So.
That's true. That's true. He doesn't know, in fact, who's the president right now. Another fact you can look up on the Blue Amp channel. Just did a video about this. All right. Check out Blue Amp. Check out Beyond Politics if you're an audio kind of person. For Cliff Schecter, I'm Matt Robeson. We'll see you next time.
Yep. Say hi to George Santos for us.